Hello all. So many times in SSB, we see group discussions being held around topics related to environment, and sometimes we also do get to see lecturates on the very same topic. This video will provide a deep insight and related facts regarding the same topic. In section 1, we'll be analyzing the role of nodal agency, its guiding principle, and various mandates regarding India's environmental related subjects. We see the Ministry of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change is the nodal ministry and act as primary administrative wing for environmental framework. As India is a developing nation and infrastructure development is inevitable, the ministry ensures sustainable development, balancing vital growth and preserving ecosystem. Now, coming under flora and fauna, it is responsible for exhaustive conservation of natural resources, lakes, rivers, forests, and wildlife habitat. It also coordinates with animal welfare and implements tight pollution containment guidelines. It is also answerable to various bodies and conventions. It coordinates with bodies of UN agencies such as UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Programme, ICIMOD, that is International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, UNCED, that is United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, and Commission on Sustainable Development. Now, every development needs financing, and MOEFCC manages projects and fundings with global environmental facilities. It also cooperates with various regional bodies such as SARC, ESCAP, and G20 initiatives. Now, talking about sovereign environmental policies, India's frameworks are highly specific, cohesive national statements, and strategic declarations. Talking about National Forest Policy of 1988, it oversees three broad aspects, that is, ecological stability, prevention of native forest, and green canopy to check soil erosion. Since India is heavily ensuring infrastructure development that can lower the green cover of India, to counter that, National Conservation Strategy and Policy Statement of 1992 was released that connects development sector with environment impact consideration to prevent unplanned degradation. Coming to policy statement on abatement of pollution 1992, it prioritized cleaner production technologies, pollution prevention at the source level, and strict enforcement mechanisms. Coming to the last one, National Environmental Policy of 2006, it integrates environmental priorities into general economic and social planning, establishing liability for ecosystem remediation. Now, coming to the second section, we'll be discussing about taxonomic surveys. Taxonomy means identifying and grouping of flora and fauna. Such surveys are done by two apex bodies. One is Botanical Survey of India, that does survey of plants, and second is Zoological Survey of India, that does survey of animals. Now, talking about Botanical Survey of India, its headquarters is in Kolkata and it operates through 11 regional bodies. It was established in 1890 and reorganized in 1954. Its main purpose is to map the botanical distribution and mark the plant's set of economic importance and identify fragile floristic ecosystem. It differentiates plants into two different bodies, that is vascular and non-vascular, and based on that taxonomy audits are done for vivid plants. Now, to guide conservation, we must have some records or some data, and BSI provides the same, that is detailed authentic database and plant diversity. The BSI ensures red data tracking that evaluates and lists rare, threatened, and endemic plant species. BSI also have objectives of maintaining immense physical herbaria, botanical gardens, and orchards. And the most important objective of BSI is to explore plant varieties with active pharmaceutical or industrial utility. Now, coming to our second apex body, that is Zoological Survey of India. The body was formed in 1916 and is the apex survey body of faunal community. It registers wildlife distribution patterns in diverse states, protected forests, and marine zones. It also maintains the authoritative Red Data Book for Indian fauna and prints the Fauna of India. Its headquarters is in Kolkata and 16 localized regional centers through which it operates efficiently. Zoological Survey of India uses cutting edge technology to track ecological shift and enforce compliance. And one such technology is GIS modeling, that stands for Geographic Information System, and it is to map crucial wildlife corridors. Second is ENVIS Center, that is Environmental Information System Center. It functions as the nodal database under ENVIS and handles international CITES compliance mapping. CITES stands for Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. It is when an animal that is endangered in one country is brought from some other country to control its population. ZSI also identifies illegal wildlife products to support anti poaching prosecutions. In 2023, ZSI had 178 new faunal discoveries. Now it is a mandate that any country shall have 33% of its total geographical area under forest cover, and India's forest policy also says the same. But if we look at the report, the forest cover along with tree cover accounts for 27.17%, and total area reached is around 8,27,357 square kilometer. The active expansion rate of 1,445 square kilometer. Now India also uses technology of LiDAR and satellite to leverage high resolution multispectral imagery to characterize canopy's density accurately. Now, coming to the section 4 of this presentation comes the species project. India has launched several projects to save the endangered species. This project not only involves species on ground, but it has a holistic coverage, that is birds, animals and aquatic life. Coming to the apex predator, that is tiger, for it NTCA was established, that is National Tiger Conservation Authority, the statutory body under which the flagship project, that is Project Tiger, was launched in 1973. India has an average wild tiger population of 3,682, and India also proudly hosts over 70% of the global wild tiger population. It encompasses 54 dedicated tiger reserves across 18 states using a strict core buffer management strategy. Now, talking about buffer management strategy, it is a place that segregates the tiger population from the human population. Now, population growth of tiger is of 6.1% annually. India is a founding member of Big Cat Alliance, and to promote that, India also have various projects related to lion population, where it focused on conserving Asiatic lions in Gujarat's Gir landscape, addressing disease threat vectors. We have also seen that in Ganga there are dolphins, and various dolphin projects were also launched to conserve both marine and riverine dolphins, serving as biological indicators of aquatic health. We all know that Himalaya caters large number of diverse flora and fauna, and for that Govind Ballabh Pant Institute of Himalayan Environment was established in 1988 at Almora, Uttarakhand. It conducts scientific studies on Himalayan climate dynamics and water security. It also operates via five specialized regional centers in Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. It is a technology driven initiative that introduces adaptive local farming solutions for mountain communities. Now, in section 5, we will be learning about India's legal frameworks for protecting genetic assets and forest covers. Here is a data where we can see that total protected areas are 998 sites that cover 1,73,629.52 square kilometers, that is 5.28% of geographical area. Talking about tiger reserves, there are 54 tiger reserves, core buffer strategy across 18 states, and it is monitored via National Tiger Conservation Authority. Now talking about forest cover, it stands 21.71%, and it is only forest cover and it is not tree or canopy cover. It stands at 7,13,789 square kilometer of actual forest cover. Now talking about total forest cover, that is forest plus tree cover, it is 24.62. This data is little bit old. Currently it is 25% and it has reached about 8,09,537 square kilometer, and the target is 33% of total geographical area. Now there are several biological diversity frameworks. India has ratified the UNCBD, that is United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, instituting robust domestic legislation. First comes the Biological Diversity Act of 2002 that was amended in 2023. It governs access to biological resources and ensures equitable benefit sharing and protects traditional knowledge of various tribal communities. Second comes the National Biodiversity Authority. It is an apex regulator based in Chennai and it approves the commercial exploitation requests from foreign entities. Now there is something called as People's Biodiversity Register that is used by state biodiversity boards to coordinate localized conservation and documentation of resources. The last one is 47 declared heritage sites. It is declared to safeguard unique, sensitive local biodiversity hotspots across states. Okay, now there is a thing that is called UNESCO MAP program, that is UNESCO Man and Biosphere Guidelines, and these guidelines are to have efficient utilization of natural resources along with saving the endangered ones. And India also has a program called Biosphere Reserve Program that was initiated in 1986, aligns with UNESCO's Man and Biosphere guidelines. Now, India has divided its biosphere into three zones, that is, core zone where no human activity is allowed, buffer zone where limited research and education is done, and third is transition zone where the zone transition happens. Now, India also has targeted financial and planning program designed to preserve these vast biomes. First is sovereign scheme, operated under the Conservation of Natural Resources and Ecosystem Scheme of 2021 to 2026. Then comes the management plans. It implements comprehensive integrated management plans to counter regional degradation. Third is pilot initiative. Active pilot rehabilitation programs are currently operational in four key reserves. Since we have discussed about the legal frameworks, now it is time for coming to the section where we will be discussing about regulatory oversights, in which we will be analyzing India's strict environmental impact assessments and dedicated Green Tribunal judicial benches. This section will start with Environmental Impact Assessment. The Environmental Impact Assessment was started in 1978. It was initially restricted to river valleys and multi-purpose irrigation projects, but in 1994 established the first legal clearing mandate covering 29 categories, and wherein initially it was only for river valley and multi-purpose irrigation project. Its jurisdiction got extended to mandate special regulatory screening for activities within coastal regulation zones. We all know tribunals are made to fast track the cases related to a specific subject, and Green Tribunal are also a dedicated judicial body established for rapid specialized adjudication. Now it combines judicial members, judges, with environmental experts to guide decisions. It operates independently, civil procedural courts guided by environmental principles. It was legally mandated to solve filed environmental disputes within 6 months. And NGT was also in news in recent times because of the Great Nicobar project, where transshipment hub, airports, and colonies are being made. The NGT runs a wide regional structure to ensure local accessibility to environmental justice. The bench has been divided into three categories, that is principal bench that is located in New Delhi to handle major national level disputes. Then is zonal bench, four permanent offices operate in Pune, Kolkata, Bhopal and Chennai. Then comes the circuit bench that is periodic circuit courts held in Shimla, Shillong and Jodhpur. Now comes the section 7 where we will be discussing about pollution control. The Central Pollution Control Board mandates the National Clean Air Program, and we'll also talk about waste legislation. We'll talk about Central Pollution Control Board, and it derives its regulatory power from landmark environmental laws, that is Water Act of 1974, where it was tasked to maintain and restore the chemical purity of national water basins such as Ganga and Brahmaputra. Second comes the Air Act of 1981, that is empowered to set standard industrial emission limits and monitor ambient air quality. And third came the Environment Act of 1986, that serves as the principal scientific execution hand for solid and hazardous waste. In recent times, Delhi was in news because of its bad air quality, and the program that records such incidents comes under National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring Program, that is NAMP, that runs extensive data grid. It has 1,429 operational stations, that is 931 manual and 498 continuous across 511 cities. It targets 8 pollutants, that is PM10, PM2.5, SO2, NO2, ammonia, CO, ozone and benzene. It computes a standardized air quality index to communicate public health alerts. Now, talking about clean air, there is a flagship program called National Clean Air Program. It was launched in 2019 and it was India's first long term strategy. Its objective was to target 131 non attainment cities that consistently violates national standard air quality limits. The measurement of such metrics was against 2019-2020 particulate concentration baseline. It collaborated with premier academic institutes such as IITs and NITs for local action plans, and it also had several state action plans updated 23 for Punjab, Haryana, UP, Rajasthan, and Delhi because these states showed worse level of air quality. Now, PM10 rejection target of 2025-26 is 40%. Talking about waste management, there are diverse categories of waste available today, that is plastic waste, solid waste, hazardous waste, and e waste. Talking about plastic waste rules that came in 2016 and were amended in 2022, the reform was minimum bag thickness of 50 microns and it phased out 12 single use items. Now, talking about solid waste rules of 2016, it mandates strict source segregation. That is, you have to segregate the waste at your home, and door to door collection across urban bodies took place. Then comes the hazardous waste rules of 2016 that prioritizes chemical prevention, recycling, co processing, and safe burial. Talking about e waste, its rules came out in 2022 covering 106 electrical categories, including solar PV waste, and enforces circular economy target. In this section 8, we'll be talking about climate action, a global and national study of atmospheric treaties, river rejuvenation, and active carbon credit system. In accordance with Vienna and Montreal Protocol, India is a committed signatory to global treaties to phase out ozone depleting substances, first of which is HCFC 141b phase out. India is the first developing country to eliminate HCFC 141b in rigid foam manufacturing. Second comes the ozone cell, established a dedicated national ozone unit for execution and technology conversion. And it also restricts chemical import under the custom clearance framework. HPMP achievement indicators. Now HPMP stands for hydrochlorofluorocarbons phase out management plan. Now India had a decadal target to achieve a massive 44% phase out reduction by 2020. India has surpassed the initial global protocol target of 35% reduction. It also regulates toxic components, restricting lead content in paint to a maximum of 90 ppb. Under rivers and wetland protection, we have few schemes. Coming to rivers, the major river system of India is the Ganga river system, and in that we see that Ganga is getting polluted day by day. There are plans that have been executed specifically for Ganga, that is National Mission for Clean Ganga, under which Namami Gange targets heavy polluting sectors such as distillers, sugar or pulp industry that contributes to 70% of effluents. Now it also keeps filtration in check where it runs real-time water quality sensors at 97 major locations along the Ganga. And the scheme also drives municipal sewage treatment plants expansion in riparian cities. Alright, now another important aspect when we talk about water bodies are wetlands. Wetlands are areas where water covers the soil or is present near the surface for most of the year, creating a unique ecosystem. They include marshes, swamps, bogs, mangroves, and are important for filtering water, preventing floods, and protecting wildlife. And to protect the same, we have NPCA framework. NPCA stands for National Plan for Conservation of Aquatic Ecosystem. It is a single unified plan for lakes and wetlands. Now, NPCA comes under National Wetland Conservation Program, that is NWCP. Now talking about Ramsar sites, the information given here is little old. India is home to 100 designated Ramsar sites, where Tamil Nadu leads the state with the highest count, that is of 20, while West Bengal covers the largest total area. Sundarban is the largest Ramsar site, while Renuka wetland in Himachal is the smallest one. As I spoke about MWCP, that is National Wetland Conservation Program, it prevents structural degradation from agriculture runoff and siltation. India operates a multi-pronged climate strategy, that is, combining community actions with structured carbon market. The National Action Plan for Climate Change, that includes 8 missions, orchestrates national action through target-driven missions focusing on solar energy, water efficiency, and Green India mission. It enhances forest carbon sinks. That means the more amount of forest present, the more it will absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Now, to calculate it, we have to learn about three aspects. First is carbon sequestration rate, second is forest area, third is survival rate, and fourth is growth factor. Now, carbon sequestration rate, that is the amount of carbon that is being stored naturally, which is equals to the forest area, that is total area of forest, into survival rate, that is the percentage of trees that remain alive and actually growing in that area, and third is growth factor, that is the average amount of carbon captured per hectare by the surviving trees in 1 year based on species and age. So this is how we can calculate the amount of carbon that is being stored. Now, third comes the Green Credit Program. It encourages voluntary tradable carbon generation through certified tree plantation and river basin restoration. You will get a certain number of carbon credits, that is the amount of carbon your industry can release. This amount of carbon is tradable. Suppose if a company A is not using its entire amount of given carbon, then it can sell it to company B. Fourth comes the community action based program, that is Mission Life, in which global movement promoting lifestyle for environment, nudging communities towards mindful consumption to build a network of pro planet people. This is the end of the video, and we have got a deeper insight about how Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change works, and how the various bodies that comes under it tackles various aspects of climate change. Hope you like this video and give this video a thumbs up.